Morning, everybody. Like Jacques said, Tech Talk this morning. One of the topics that we've had at our tech committee meetings was the issue around COCs being issued per unit or per complex. So let's have a look at what the format's the same. You'll recognize this from the last couple of presentations. Start off with a problem statement as provided by plumber or concerned citizen. What was required, the reference documents, the reasoning behind those documents, the consequences, and then the resolution. So the discussion point, COCs being issued per complexes and not per unit. The problem statement was it's unclear whether one PRB COC may be issued for multiple dwellings or units in a complex or apartment building, or whether each dwelling unit must be issued with its own COC. Also unclear whether a COC must be issued for the bulk internal reticulation supplying the various units. So if you get a phone call from a IOPSA compliance auditor and you've issued one COC, you'll see that if you look at a development like that, you might be in for a long afternoon or maybe a day or two. So the resolution that was required at the time was to confirm whether a COC must be issued for each individual occupancy in an apartment block or similar multiple unit installations. So the first of our reference documents ended up being the Water Services Act. We've seen this extract on a couple of these presentations, and that's where, let's put it this way, the biggest hammer out of the whole lot starts with the Water Services Act, and clause 13, the first section deals with the local authority or the water services institution must within 2 years fit water volume measuring devices. So I'm going to skip through A and B and head straight to where the developer and the plumber gets involved. The same clause 13, section 2 says, if constructed or installed after promulgation of these regulations, a suitable water volume measuring device or volume controlling device must be fitted to separately measure or control the water supply to every individual dwelling within a new sectional title development, group housing development, or apartment building. So if we look at point A, it covers just about every every type of occupancy other than a normal freestanding dwelling. Because if you're in a sectional title development, whether it's a body corporate or group housing where they have a homeowners association, or an apartment building, could be a block of flats. The other B and C is for commercial and institution, and then obviously irrigation, but I doubt there's still local authorities that allow irrigation to happen via their water supply. So if we look at that portion there and you look at developments as they're going up across the country, you'll find that in this case you can see the external drainage visible. There's no sign of metering, there's no sign of the water pipes or anything here. So you'll see that when we're talking about the main reticulation outside, we'll have a look at in depth now. But the theory is that if you look at that development there, you can see it'll be, if you had to call out to provide a quote to install sub-metering, it might be a bit of a hassle. Then the next document that we're looking at would be SANS 10252 Part 1, 2018. 6.1.1.3 says general installation serving premises of separate occupancy shall facilitate individual metering. And typical example of what it should not look like. You can imagine if units, say 6 of them, 2, 4, 6, 8 of them, plastic supply on a combined installation. You can see these things are not, it's almost impossible to trace. It's not fixed properly. It is just all around deurmekaar. But the point is that if that is a combined installation, obviously you can't have a plastic pipe supplying your fire protection. So this is a typical example of how not to do it. but the requirement from the standard is very clear. Any or general installation serving premises of separate occupancy shall facilitate individual metering. The next document we referred to was the National Building Regulations, which just popped into Part A. We'll start with H4. H4 is a normal dwelling house, and the occupancy consisting of a dwelling unit on its own site, including garage and other domestic outbuildings, if any. So if it's a normal freestanding or freehold property, H4 applies, and then it refers to a dwelling unit on its own site, including a garage. But when you move into the more, let me just get my, there we go. When we move into the one that we're busy discussing, H3 is a occupancy consisting of 2 or more dwelling units on a single site. So once you go 2 or more could be 80, it could be 100. It's more than 2 or 2 or more on a single site. That's when it becomes a bit more complicated. So let's have a look at the reasoning around these documents. Both documents require that water meters shall be supplied for each dwelling, whether it's an H4 and units in separate occupation in H3. The responsibility for the entire installation downstream of said meter supplying that unit is the responsibility of the individual owner. Take note, the individual owner, even in a sectional title, those portions or sections that belongs to that individual is the responsibility of that owner. The COC must therefore be issued to the owner of that unit. The whole distribution reticulation to the separate units is the responsibility of the body corporate or the homeowners association, and is also subject to the water regulations, bylaws, and mandatory standards. Therefore, COC must also be issued to the body corporate or the homeowners association for workmanship on the distribution system supplying the different dwelling units, and also in the communal areas and other facilities not in private ownership. So if you happen to have a pool with a change room area, or there's an entertainment area or a bauma or a lapa somewhere in the middle of the complex where it's like a communal thing, that would obviously not belong to the owner of the units. It would belong to the body corporate. All included together with the main reticulation belongs to the body corporate or the homeowners, and they're obviously responsible for that. And that COC would be for matters such as pipe sizing, support, material, plastic pipes in fire or combined systems, backflow prevention, gas pipes installed in the same service ducts as water pipes, meters, notifications to principals of any non-compliance on rational design. If you guys recall, we looked at a rational design or the presentation around rational design says that even if you notify in writing the owner or the principal that there's an issue, then that notification becomes part of that COC issued for the main reticulation. Then if all the units are exact replicas of the other, then it's logical to conclude that mistakes or non-compliance is found on one unit, they will also be found on the others. If they are to be corrected on the one unit being audited, then they should also be corrected on all the other similar units, not only the ones that are randomly selected for audits. So we look at a typical example of what should not be happening and what is, unfortunately. Yeah, we've got the water supply being teed off to the units, metered, but in the same duct we've got plastic piping with gas running across there. Standard's very clear, you cannot have gas and water in the same duct, especially with plastic piping. So you can see as a typical example. Not sure exactly what the setup was with this one, but good luck to the tenants and the owners here. You see that louver there. So you've got this whole gas main coming in here, distributing around this gas unit here, and you've got louvers into the building. So this is a typical or non-compliance that should have been noted, or that should have been brought to the designer's attention when this whole thing started off. The same thing applies for when we mention support of pipework and ducts. You can see this is a vicious sample of how it shouldn't be done. But now this left in the basement or in a parking garage, that belongs to the homeowners. It's not, or the homeowners association and the body corporate. So that's not part of the actual unit. So when we look at these duct areas or the common areas or the not in separate occupancy, in other words, somewhere along the line, the levies or whatever is being accumulated is going to be used to sort this out here, but there should be a COC for this and then for the individual units. So if we look at the terminology used in the National Building Regulations, section AP, XA, etc., and its reference and standards. In other words, if you look at the building regulations, that is the actual regulation that tells the building control officer what they should be looking at and what is the law, and the application of that, in other words, 10400 or other reference standards. They all indicate that it covers every building and dwelling unit in separate occupation on a property as subject to its own requirements. The on-site and in-building hot and cold water, as well as drainage reticulation serving those individual dwellings, are also subject to those regulations regarding the compliance for installation and maintenance of the structures and services, including the plumbing. Recently, it was necessary. Legal opinion on this matter was obtained by PRB, and it confirmed that separate COCs should be issued for each dwelling unit in separate occupation. So we've had an incident where it was necessary to confirm that, and it has been done. So it made our life slightly easier with regards to the decision on whether you should have separate or single ones, and the legal opinion was that you need to have them separate. So if we look at the consequences of non-compliance, every owner of a house or flat, apartment, and every body corporate has the right to protection provided by a COC issued by a plumber licensed by the SACWA Professional Body for Plumbers, which in this case is PRB, which holds the plumber responsible for ensuring that the new installation, repair, or replacement work done is in compliance with the regulations and national standards. Not issuing a COC for any installation, repair, or replacement work done on storage water heating systems, be it an electric, solar, or heat pump, as required by the compulsory South African national standards, is also a contravention of the water bylaws of most local authorities. We've dealt with this before. When you go into your area where you work, you'll find that if you look at the water services bylaw, the bylaws are very clear. They don't go into, okay, there are some that go into detail, but basically what happens is that your water services bylaw requires that all water installations comply with 10252 part 1, and then the installation of a hot water cylinder or a storage water heater shall comply with 10254. So, and 10254 as it reads at the moment, the 2017 version says you shall issue a COC upon completion of your work. Incorrect hot water systems are also regarded as hazards in terms of Section 10 of the Occupational Health and Safety Act and Section 55 and 61 of the Consumer Protection Act. So if you'd like to note that for reference with your clients or with reference to your body corporates and homeowners that you deal with, you can quote those two sections. Well, firstly, you can have a look at the sections and then quote them or use them as a tool. The point is that you are covered by two acts, both the Consumer Protection and the Occupational Health and Safety Act, with regards to the safe installation of water heating systems. The law holds the owner of any property responsible for the safety and compliance of the hot water services, and the law holds the plumber doing any replacement, maintenance, or repair responsible to notify the owner in writing of any non-compliances in the pre-existing heating system. The random checks by PRB on issued COCs checks that this is being correctly done. The PRB in turn can also protect the plumber who has correctly issued a COC for compliant work in case of disputes regarding the implementation of the regulations and South African national standards. So there are still, well, there are less and less of them, but there are still guys that are of the opinion that the PRB is only there as a stick to beat the licensed plumbers. Not the case. You can have a look at that. and if you've done your work correctly, you've issued the notices, you've done, even on new work, you've done it as per the standards and you've issued the COC, then the PRB can then protect that licensed plumber that issued the COC in case of dispute. It happens. Sometimes it's a necessity, but like I say, it happens less and less. A COC, okay, sorry, the resolution that we came to was straightforward. A COC must be issued for each individual dwelling unit and not one COC for a complex with multiple dwelling units. The individual water meter to a dwelling in separate occupation will be regarded as the supply point to that dwelling. If no individual meter has been installed, the point where it should have been installed will be regarded as the supply point to the dwelling. And very importantly, a separate COC must also be issued for the communal water and drainage reticulation system up to the individual meter supply points to the various dwelling units in a multi-dwelling building. If no individual water meters are installed at the separate units, it constitutes a failure of the water supply system. In other words, the unit is there, you're doing the work on the unit and you're issuing the COC on the unit, but if there's no water meters installed as per clause 13, section 2, you'll see that it constitutes a failure of the water supply system. So you can imagine the chaos created by issuing one COC for a complex with 60 or 80 or 100 units in there, and none of them have meters, and no one signed for the main reticulation, and there was one COC issued for the whole development. It's going to be absolute chaos trying to fix that there. So as far as that resolution is concerned, have we got any questions?
Yes, Aldrin. The first one, which local authorities do not require a COC?
No, the COC is required by the standards, 10252, sorry, 10254 for the geysers, 10106 for the solar, and 1352 for the heat pump. The local authorities require, or the majority of them require, compliance with that standard. So when you're doing a water installation, it needs to comply with 10252 part 1, and then the second one that they quote would be for the storage water heaters to comply with 10254. I'm not sure, majority of the ones I've got ask for that. There are one or two that refer to their own, or they need to have them inspected. There are deviations from the norm. Not 100% sure which ones do not ask. The best would be to actually just get a copy of your local authority bylaws, either from them. It's normally something like $8 or $10 or something stupid that you have a copy, or even easier, get onto your smartphone, log onto your municipal website, check under downloads, and you'll find that the water services bylaw, and just a heads up, make sure you download the correct one, because water services bylaw, a lot of municipalities have two. The one deals with the actual payment and supply of the water, and the other one deals with the technical bit around the water and drainage. So you'll have to check each municipality on its own.
Okay, in order to issue a COC, the plumber must be a licensed plumber with CPD points up to the required amount. However, there are some older guys out there that don't use or have computers or laptops. I'm talking about guys who qualified prior to 1989. What can be done to facilitate these old school plumbers who keep up with the changes of pipes technology, etc., in regards to COC issues?
Very open-ended question. I'm concerned that he mentioned prior 1989. I was there, and I don't consider myself that old. The easiest answer, as far as I'm concerned, would be to actually contact the PRB. They have got a group of ladies there. No, let me rephrase. They've got a group of lovely ladies there, very helpful, and they go along and they will check the requirements. They'll see if there's currently a lot of work being done around RPL. So the if it takes one online assessment, or for the guys that are up in Gauteng, you can get to Centurion, you can do an online assessment to get from qualified to licensed plumber. The rest of it, most of what you need to do can be done from a smartphone. I say most of it can be done from the smartphone, but when it comes to the actual work on a PC, unfortunately, we are in an age of technology. But I would suggest start off with the ladies at the PRB, see what can be done around getting yourself licensed firstly, and then secondly, maintaining the whole, because there are still paper COCs available, if I'm not mistaken. So you don't have to go full on computer, but at least you need to stay in touch with. So like this webinar, if you click at the end of the webinar, you'll submit your PRB number. That'll be your CPD credits. You go to an IOPSA meeting, you sign the attendance register, that would be the credits. So not everything's got to be electronic, but if you contact the PRB ladies, I'm sure they'll put you on the right path.
Okay, the next one, is this the same for guest houses?
Now, a guest house is a different occupancy. You still need, it will be like a, I'm just busy opening up while we're talking. If you're looking at the occupancy of a guest house, hospitality is occupancy where unrelated persons rent furnished rooms on a transient basis within dwelling house or domestic residence with sleeping accommodation for not more than 16 people. That's H5. So you'll find that that unit has got, or that H5 occupancy has got a single, what could be referred to as a bulk meter, but as a single meter supplying that whole property, because according to that occupancy, we're dealing with one property.
Okay, if you have to issue a COC, how do companies like King Price get away with doing geyser replacements without the plumber issuing any COCs?
Or that I wouldn't be able to answer. That would be something that should be taken up with either the insurance company or with that company. I'm not familiar with the name or the situation around that. But according to the standards, or let's put it this way, with all the work having gone, or with all the negotiations having gone into the insurance sector, there shouldn't be any loopholes for them to actually get this done. But in case it does, I'm sure if we contact or even send me the details, then I'm sure we can follow up. But it's not it shouldn't be happening.
When issuing a Schedule 4 COC for sale of a property, is a water meter required?
Yes. If you are going to be signing, I'm assuming Schedule 4, we're referring to, is that query from Cape Town?
I did not.
Have a show, just have a show of hand, or just, but yes, if you are going to be issuing a COC for sale of property, and the standards require that you need to have an individual meter for each unit, then yes, you are signing, or you are basically signing to say that everything on that site or everything on that property complies with regards to material and workmanship. So, material, workmanship, and the standards. So if you are going to sign something that says that that place complies with the standard, then yes, they would definitely require water meters. I would just confirm with the local authority, depending on the age of the building, that extract from the Water Services Act refers to all buildings being erected after 2001. So if the thing was built in the 1800s or 1900s, then just confirm with the local authority, but it shouldn't be a hassle.
The water supply is from a big water tank on top of roof to each building. The plumber COC each unit, but the water supply is non-compliant. Does the plumber COC non-compliance to body corporate only?
Yes, because remember now when we discussed the main reticulation, that water tank belongs to everybody. Well, it supplies everybody, but it belongs to the body corporate or the homeowners. So that is not that individual unit that receives its own COC. that water supply and the drainage system and the maintenance thereof outside of those sectional title units falls squarely onto the homeowners and the body corporate. So yes, you need to then issue it to them, or when the COC is being issued, it should have been issued to them for further action.
What will happen to the plumber if he issues a COC for an entire block with one COC? Please note, plumber was not educated with regards to process of issuing a COC.
I don't know if it's a religious chap, but if I was him, I'd start praying. And look, we all know that there were cases like this, so I'm sure they'll be dealt with on an individual basis, or they'll be dealt with on merit. The point is that the standards for individual, or the requirement for individual meterings, been around for 2001. At that time, it wasn't being policed. We even have local authorities doing retrofits on some of those buildings now. So I would not like to venture a guess as to what is going to happen. If I was that plumber concerned, I would actually contact someone to say, look, this is where we are. What do we need to do? Do we need to put something in writing? How do we get, like you say, if it wasn't, or he wasn't aware, or it might have been signed off by the local authority as far as that installation is concerned. But I would actually follow up on that just to make sure that if there's any hassles. The other option is to sit out and wait and see if you do get audited, but that's not the right way to do it. Let's just see if you can't figure out, or talk to someone and say, look, this is where we are. What do we need to do? Do we need to note something, or do we go back to the certificate that was issued by the municipality to say that they've signed off on the building? Then we can have a look at what's happening there. But that was one of the reasons why this question came to TAC in the first place, is that it was happening. And after today, I'm praying that it shouldn't be happening anymore, because the implications is, like you say, I mean, if you've done 60 units and you've issued one COC, that means that COC covers all the underground work, all the units, individual shuttle valves, meters, pipe sizing underground, the whole tutti then becomes one audit. And not only will it be a very long audit, but it might be a very costly refix on that. So we'll, like I say, after today, there shouldn't be any more. But if there are ones, then I would suggest just following up and saying, look, this is where we are. What do we need to make sure that it will obviously not happen again, but how do we fix this?
Okay, the next one. Do we have to give PIRB COCs on gas geysers?
Okay. We can have a tech talk around that one of these mornings. The problem with a gas geyser, and I'm not saying all of them, and don't shoot me and don't report me to anyone. What I'm saying is, when you're dealing with a gas geyser, the standard actually spells it out very nicely by saying that if you look at, sorry, I'm just opening while I'm speaking. If you're looking at the standard, it says that there's a, here we go. In most cases, the instantaneous hot water heating process is triggered by a differential pressure switch and an orifice restrictor. This causes higher downstream hot water flow pressure drops than a normal storage water heater. Therefore, pipe design, pipe sizing, and simultaneous use of all terminal fittings shall be carefully considered and calculated to ensure sufficient hot water and balanced hot and cold water pressure at terminal fittings. So unless that thing was designed by a competent person, or unless that unit is very special where you do have balanced pressure, or your installation complies with 7.5.2.2 of 10252 part 1, I would be very, very careful issuing a COC on a gas geyser that was not designed, or an installation that was not designed by a competent person. Because for simple example, we've got some buildings in PE that we've had 3 or 4 different consultants try and rationalize and design the gas and the supply, hot water supply to that building, and all 3 of them have failed up to now. It's very complicated when you're looking at pipe sizing and you're looking at the various units. So issuing a COC for a gas geyser, I know there are guys PRB registered for gas. That's a different scenario, but issuing it for a gas geyser, that would be taking a whole lot of unnecessary risk.
Okay, then that is all that we have time for this morning.
Okay,
Thank you, Adrian.
no problem. Guys, enjoy your long weekend. Same time, same place next week. We'll have another chat. Cheers.
Cheers. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this morning. Please note that all the questions that were not answered will be answered via email. And also remember on your way out to fill in that survey, and you will be required to put in your PIRB registration number. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day. And like Adrian said, your long weekend.